Go ahead and get started. I love to hear the buzzing in the room. Does my heart good when people come and meet together and kind of chat a little bit with each other. That's a significant aspect of our health. What's that? Social connection. So, coming to these classes, you're dealing with one of the pillars of lifestyle medicine. You know, there's six of them. Do you all know what the six of them are? You can look here, what you eat. And what do you eat more of? More plants. Okay. And then what's the next? It's keep moving. So, how we move throughout the day is important. So, if you're sitting on the couch watching TV, you have a sedentary life. If you get up and go outside and look at the bees and the flowers and the clouds, it'll be a lot healthier lifestyle if you do that intermittently throughout the day. And if you really want to improve your muscle mass and prevent osteoporosis or treat that or whatever, then you want to do some resistance training, or you want to do some weights along with that, or do balance training is important so you don't fall, which will lead to a fracture. So, okay, what we eat, how we move, the chemicals we choose. That means avoiding risky substances. What are the risky substances? Smoking, drinking, perhaps doctor pills. You thought about that? It's one of the third or fourth leading cause of death in our country. And a lot of people are surprised by that. I am one of those guys who's prescribed a lot of pills in my lifetime. And I've told you before, one of the reasons I'm up here is doing penance for all those pills I used to push. So that's three. So we have three things that were down. And then how we deal with stress is kind of important. So staying calm. How do we stay calm? We're thinking about deep breathing. We're thinking about meditation. We're thinking about doing fun things in your life. You know, having something to wake up for, and what makes your life worthwhile, and looking forward to getting out of bed and doing something fun or helping other people or whatever it is you choose to do. All of us are a bit different. Very important. And then what's the other? We cultivating connection. We talked about that by coming to these classes. And then there's the sleep issue. So if you're not getting adequate sleep, you really want to maybe focus your attention on how you might possibly do that. Oh, thank you very much. Wow. I've been up today. I got up a little earlier than I usually do, and I spent 4 hours at a health fair talking. I didn't think it would affect me tonight, but it might. So thanks, Scott, for the water. Hello for you online. We're here for you also, and we're happy that you're tagging along. There were 11 people or so who showed up, along with the number of people who are in the room, close to 20. And so we're having some pretty good numbers over the weeks, maybe between these classes here at Tuesday night and then the Wednesday natural grocers. There were like 26 last week. And so that we're getting into the 50 plus numbers every week. And then this week, we also have another session. Where is it at? It's the Campbell Center? No, it's Willamette Lane on Thursday, and that's Diet Wars. And then next Monday, it's going to be the Campbell Community Center in Eugene, where Scott's going to be presenting. I can't remember.
Food behavioral change and food addiction.
Okay. So we are reaching out across the community. And today I reached out with Debbie and Trish. The three of us were there at a booth where we talked with Cottage Grove hospital employees, nurses, physical therapists, patient advocates, people from medical floor, people from the surgical floor. They had no clue that there were these free classes that were helping people actually make changes in their life, and not only make the change, because it's easy for us to have a New Year's resolution. And, we do something for a day, a week, a month, and then what happens? It goes to the wayside. And what are these classes? These classes are a tribe for support to encourage people to keep on the path for the long haul. And once you do it long enough, then it becomes a habit. And then you no longer need to come to these classes. But a lot of people try to make their behavior change, and they're not very successful because they have a lot of barriers. And what are those barriers? They're their family members who tell them, you're going to get sick eating this way. You don't get enough protein. And, they have every reason in the world that people should keep eating and be sick, literally. So anyway, we're trying to change that. And obviously I'm having fun, but we spent 4 hours there and came home, went back to the tennis court. I played a bit of tennis for a while, and that was fun. And then came home and had this wonderful tempeh. Now, tempeh was not the most wonderful treat when I first ate it. My wife, when she prepared it, it was kind of plain and bland, and she didn't like it. And I thought, well, it's okay, and it's supposed to be healthy. But she has been experimenting. And she's been experimenting with these little sauces that you put on it. And man, she came up with this one sauce. My mouth is watering as I'm talking to you because I had it last night and then I had it again tonight, and it was magnificent. So give yourself some time, add a little spice to your life, think about a few little sauces that may add some flavor. And of course, Tamara may help you with that in her cooking sessions. And we're highly supportive of what she's doing. And there's been nothing but rave reports that I've received about the information you can glean and make your life tastier and more fun. Where are we going with all this? We're going on a journey. We're going on a trip. Where is that trip taking us? To what place? A place called health. It's not to the Galapagos Islands, which would be really cool to go to. It's not to the Hawaiian Islands, but the place called health. And if you can imagine yourself being in a place where you're truly healthy and you wake up and you're just like, wow, I love the life I live, that's where we'd love you to wind up. I think I've wind up there on many days out of the week. And a lot of that is because I've been lucky and fortunate to have to keep up this image. I'm eating healthy, I'm moving throughout the day, I'm dealing with stress. It's become more than an image for me as time has gone by. Back when I started this 14 years ago, it was a little awkward and I wasn't as comfortable, but now I'm getting more and more comfortable, and I love the same for you. Today, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the magic of fiber. And when I learned about fiber, what was fiber to me? I'm a doctor, so, Metamucil, because people are constipated, But, that's not really a whole food. And so you don't get the same benefits from the fibers that are not part of their whole plant food. You want to kind of stick to that message. And I hope you get that by the time we're done with the session here. I have a quick little PowerPoint I want to run through with you. You're going to hear some things kind of repetition tonight. One of the purposes of that is to get you comfortable with trying to figure out, do I want fiber? How much fiber do I want in my life? How am I going to get it? What are the foods that I need to be eating? And I'd like you to be able to answer those questions when we get done with tonight's session. Okay? All right. So let's start out with the first slide. Next slide. So our foods have changed. For those of you who've seen the introductory lecture, you've learned how they've changed, and I will show you that slide again because it's really eye-opening. I have on here what? Sugar and oils and cheese, and then I have this thing of a fruit basket. And you know, 3 of those may not be the healthiest choices. I hope you're all kind of thinking, is that really healthy? The olive oil and the avocado oil that I'm using, is the Mediterranean diet the healthiest choice, or is that a compromise sort of situation for what people think I may do? Next slide. So let's look at the sugar issue. In 1900, the average American used to eat 5 pounds of sugar per year. Now the average American is, in 2010, was getting 77 pounds. Now we're up to 100 pounds of sugar per year per person. Pretty fantastic, huh? The amount of sugar, plain sugar, that's in the processed foods that many of us are eating. Oils and fats have gone from 4 to 74 pounds, cheese from 2 to 30 pounds. Okay, no wonder we have an overweight population, yeah? Okay, let's go on to fiber issue because that's what we're talking about today. The fiber issue, the average American is getting 14 to 15 grams of fiber a day. Back in 1900, we used to get, anybody guess? A lot more. Our country recommends 25 to 35 grams a day. But do you think the country's guidelines have been influenced a little bit by industry? Because in the countries in which you find very little or no heart disease, diabetes, overweight, in those areas that they're eating 60, 80, and 100 grams of fiber a day. Now that sounds like huge, big numbers, right? But I eat 60 to 70 grams of fiber every day, and I'm here before you alive and not all bloated up and filled with gas. Maybe it sounds like it when I talk a little bit. I'm trying to channel, what's his name? The registered dietitian. Yeah, Joe Novak, about how he does his humor. I just thought of a picture of him when I was talking about that. All right, so there are so many benefits to fiber. For every 10 grams of fiber you add to your life, and what is 10 grams? You're going to hear this kind of over and over. A serving of legumes, that's beans or lentils, split peas or chickpeas, a half a cup, 7 grams. You do 3 half cups a day, like I do, and you're winding up with already 21 grams of fiber. Then for every serving of fruit, it's about 3 grams of fiber. Every serving of vegetable, about 4. Not exactly, but about. And then for whole grains, another 3 to 4. You add up 3 servings of whole grains, 3 servings of legumes, 4 or 5 servings of fruit, 5 servings of veggies, and you wind up with 60 to 70 grams of fiber a day. Easily. You're filled up. You're satisfied, you've got plenty of bulk, you add enough water to that to keep your urine light yellow to almost clear, and you're getting your health in a place back to the city called health. Okay, next slide. So, can you get enough protein from just eating plants? I hope you've got the message on this one. Is there anyone who doesn't believe you can get enough protein? Well, if there is, let's look at the next slide. Because most all protein comes from plants. The plants take nitrogen out of the air, split the molecule, make the amino acids or the building blocks of all protein just about. And the animal cow comes along and eats the grass and makes protein in their body. Well, we're animals just like the cow. We can make our own protein out of those same amino acids. Animal products do not have any better protein than plants. If you're eating enough calories and you're not starving yourself, you'll get enough protein. So the plant-based foods, if you compare equal parts of tomatoes, lima beans, peas, and potatoes and spinach with equal parts of animal products, which are the animal products here are chicken, whole milk, beef, and pork. Look at the cholesterol, none in the plant foods. Look at the fat, 4 in plants, 36 in the animals. This is 500 calories. Now, how much is 500 calories in the form of bulk in animal products? You could fit it in the palm of your hand. It's so calorie dense. But plant foods, they don't have a lot of calorie density. They're low in calorie density. You have to eat like kind of a volleyball or a little smaller size to get 500 calories, and you're filled up. But look what you get with getting filled up. You get about the same amount of protein in plants and animals for 500 calories. Now, look at the other issues. The fiber. How much fiber? 30 grams of fiber in 500 calories. If you're eating 1,200 calories to 1,500, you're getting 60, 70, 80, 90 grams of fiber a day. And what do you get in animal products? 0 fiber. There is no fiber in any animal product. What is fiber? Fiber is the material that makes up the cell wall, those cell walls in plants. It's not easily broken down by the hydrochloric acid and the pancreatic juices. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But look at the other vitamins and minerals here. The vitamin C, the folate, the vitamin E, the magnesium, calcium, it far outweighs any animal products combinations. Is there any questions on this? If you're not sold, I don't know what I can do. I can try to jump up and down at 76, going to be 77 in another 5 days. You know, I don't know what I can do to convince you how important this is to your health, the people you love, their health. That's why we're doing this. This is too important not to keep yelling and shouting about this, which I do. And, I have this nickname, which you all know about. Maybe some new people don't. Scott and I both have that name. Do you know what it is? Plant preachers. We're in the right environment tonight. Okay, let's get on to the next slide. Our nutrient deficiency is not protein. If you learn one thing from the lecture tonight, it is fiber. We are deficient in fiber. Let's go to the next slide and see the importance of it. When you eat, what you eat determines the kind of bacteria that populate your microbiome. It's the end of your small intestine and in your large intestine. You have these bacteria. These bacteria have a symbiotic relationship with you. If you feed them, they feed you back healthy chemicals. What are these healthy chemicals? They're butyrate, which is anti-inflammatory. Remember, inflammation is one of the main causes of chronic illnesses. The chronic illnesses include most all of our systems, including our cardiovascular system, pulmonary system, our skin, our urology system, GI tract system, all the systems you can think of. If you have chronic inflammation, they can be altered and leading to autoimmune disorders or other chronic illnesses, asthma and skin disorders and There's a whole list of things that we used to tell people, well, it's in your genes. Well, forget the genes. Genes are like 20% of your health. 80% is in your lifestyle choices. So what you choose to eat will populate your microbiome with certain kinds of bacteria. So it's sort of like in the desert, there are certain animals that live in the desert. They're not the same animals that live in the ocean. The environment's different. The food's different. And so when you supply food to your microbiome, you will encourage the growth of certain kind of bacteria. So the more meat, dairy, and eggs you eat, the more the bacteria will be called Bacteroides. The more plants you eat, you'll populate more Prevotella. That's the name of the bacteria. Now, what's the difference between Bacteroides and Prevotella? Prevotella does not make this chemical. Those bacteria don't make this TMAO, trimethylamine, which gets converted in your liver to trimethylamine N oxide, which is an inflammatory chemical leading to atherosclerosis. And that's the underlying etiology for our number one killer, heart disease. So you eat meat, dairy, and eggs, you encourage the growth of Bacteroides. The Bacteroides make this chemical which circulates in your body. It pushes the bad cholesterol into your arteries, causing the plaque formation. You're developing this stiffening and hardening of the arteries, so you're getting high blood pressure, you're getting your heart failing, you're putting yourself at risk of a stroke, you're putting your kidneys at risk for renal dialysis ultimately. Why would you do that? Because your grandmother and your mother made these good cookies. They're comfort foods for you. All these comfort foods, they learned from who? Their parents. Did any people have the knowledge and the science connected with what's actually healthy all these years throughout history? No. And our food sources have changed from what they used to eat, and their lifestyle of continually moving and continually exercising and having great family support by and large. And so when you think about this, you say, how much time have I really spent considering what foods are really going to bring me health versus what foods have I trained myself to like, even if they're poison? And who would want to keep eating poison if they knew that the foods they were eating were poison? Next slide. Fiber. So we talked about what fiber is. It's the cell wall. It's made of glucose molecules, which are combined in such a way that they don't get easily broken up by the hydrochloric acid and pancreatic juices. It's just the way the bonding occurs. It's just it's been bonded in a certain way that makes fiber not digestible, generally high up in the intestinal tract. There is another kind of fiber-like material, which is called resistant starch. Comes from potatoes, comes from pastas. When you heat them up and then you cool them down, it changes the structure and it becomes like fiber. It doesn't get absorbed high up in the intestinal tract. We'll talk about that in a moment. Next. Fiber is the part of the plant that is the part of plant foods that your body cannot digest or absorb. How does it get digested? In your microbiome, those good bacteria that you populated your microbiome with, the Prevotella, they ferment and digest and open up the cell wall, allowing the glucose and protein and fat to be released down low in your intestinal tract, in the ileum, in the last part of your small intestine, where there are specialized cells called L cells. And these L cells, they produce a protein hormone, which you've all heard about. You see on the news almost every night. What is that? It's in this little book here. Greger came out with. It's called Ozempic. Ozempic, Wegovy. Yeah? Yes. GLP-1. GLP-1 gets released when the foods are released, the glucose, carbohydrate, and fat, down low in your intestine. And what does that GLP-1 do? It feeds back through your vagus nerve and sends messages. I'm full. I've had enough to eat. So you don't overeat. It also sends messages back to calm down, cut down the inflammation. It sends messages back to your stomach to say, I'm full. I don't need any more to eat. It slows your digestive process down. It reduces insulin resistance. There are so many benefits to eating more whole plant foods. Foods we were meant to eat. How do I know they were meant to eat? We were meant to eat those. I look at my teeth and I compare my teeth with those of the elephant and the gorilla and the giraffe. They're all plant eaters, just like I am now for the last 14 years. How else do I know? I look at the gastrointestinal tract. Our gastrointestinal tract is long. It's 30 feet long. How do I demonstrate 30 feet? I start over here and I count 10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's a long way from the mouth up here. Let's say your mouth is here and you are eating this food. And then the food is coming down and you get to about your stomach right here, and the digestive hydrochloric acid starts trying to eat away at the plant food, and the plant cell wall stays the cell wall. It's not broken down, and the pancreatic juices try to break it down, and it doesn't get broken down. But then it gets down to the microbiome. In here, that cell wall gets broken down, and by the L cells, the GLP-1 is produced, and you're good to go. You're healthy. What happens when you eat the animal products? You put them into your mouth. You chew them up. They come down here to your stomach. The hydrochloric acid immediately starts denaturing the protein, and the pancreatic juices start breaking apart the rest of this food, because the membranes around animal cells are membranes. They're not fiber. They're easily broken down. So all that fat, sugar, and protein, it gets released high up, and it gets absorbed high up, never making it down to here. If you don't have foods that are ever making it down to here in enough quantity, you're never going to make enough GLP-1. You're always going to be hungry. I was always hungry before I chose to eat whole plant foods. Never satisfied, cravings all the time. So do you know the solution? If you're hungry all the time, eat more whole foods that are plants. Yeah? It's going to help you. You're going to get healthier. It's a simple message. And by the way, you're going to spend less money on your food bill, because meat, dairy, and eggs, the price is really going up, and it's not stopping. It's going to continue to go up. All right, let's get on to this. There's soluble, insoluble fiber. It's not so important, but it sort of is. Soluble fiber is the mushy stuff. If you overcook the oatmeal, it's kind of mushy and gooey. And the stuff that's kind of sticky and like celery, it sticks you in the mouth sometimes, which is firm. That's the insoluble fiber. It's the insoluble fiber that's the food for your microbiome. The soluble fiber, it hooks up like a sponge to your excess cholesterol and wheelbarrows it right out of your body, so you immediately lower your cholesterol level. It also hooks up with excess
estrogen. So your breast cancer risk goes down 8% for every 10 grams of fiber that you add to your diet. Your colon cancer risk goes down 10% for every 10 grams of fiber. Why? Because it speeds the toxins out of your colon, this extra fiber in your gut. It speeds up the transport. So some people get some diarrhea for a bit when they go totally whole food, plant-based immediately. So some people choose to do this gradually, like 5 grams of fiber once a week to let their body adapt slowly. Some people go all in, they suffer through the diarrhea for a week or 2 or 3 weeks, and then it goes away eventually, and they're like, oh, I'm feeling great now. I had that diarrhea for a bit while my body was adapting. So if you don't want that, do it a little bit more gradually. Resistant starch has a little bit of soluble and insoluble fiber properties, and different plant foods have different amounts of this soluble, insoluble starch. So eat a variety of plant foods. Don't stick with one. Do what Bolshevitz said, the GI specialist. Eat 30 to 40 plants per week, different kinds, so you have a microbiome which is broad. Next slide. Okay. We feed the good bacteria. They feed us back. They feed us back butyrate, which turns off our hunger, so we lose weight, decreases inflammation, so we're really getting healthier. It also, those bacteria feed us back serotonin. If you don't know what serotonin is, think of all the antidepressant and anti-anxiety medicines that you have taken or that a family member or friend has taken because of the deficiency of fiber in our diet. We also have a deficiency of serotonin. And so we take pills to try to rectify that. What could we do instead? Eat more whole plant foods, and you'll get more serotonin because 70 to 90% is produced in our GI tract. We talked about the wheelbarrow effect. Let's go to the next slide. We're almost done here. More reasons for fiber. It normalizes bowel movements, so the constipation's going to go away. And when a person comes in and says, I'm eating healthy, I have constipation, my first thought, not enough fiber, not enough water. It helps maintain bowel health, less hemorrhoids and diverticular disease, lower cholesterol levels, helps control blood sugar levels. Fiber helps in achieving healthy weight loss, and you live longer. You'll have less dying early of cardiovascular and cancer and other kinds of diseases. Next patient, or slide. I guess I'm getting a little tired. Another drink, perhaps. Okay. GLP-1. I gave you the brief introduction where it gets produced, right? It's called glucagon-like peptide 1. It's the hormone that regulates appetite, blood sugar. It stimulates your pancreas to release insulin. It inhibits glucagon. Glucagon is a hormone, raises your sugar. It has a lot of good effects. It's a good hormone. It's not necessarily so good as a injectable hormone. It's got a high cost, over $1,000 a month for that, and it has side effects with those drugs, like nausea, vomiting, slowing of the stomach too much. In fact, the side effects are significant enough that 80% of people who start taking these GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic, they quit after about 6 months because they don't like the side effects. We considered where the foods are broken down and absorbed. You could all explain that to somebody else? Yes? Easy? One thing we didn't go over. Let's take a plant food like wheat berry. What does that make when you chop it up really fine? Flour. Yeah. So what do you do with flour? You make bread. Yeah? Okay. So when you chop up a plant really fine, what happens to the cell wall? It gets broken down. And what gets released? The protein, the carbohydrate, and fat. Where does that get absorbed? High up. It's not that it's a poison food. It's just that you're not getting the benefit that you would get from eating the wheat berry when you cook it up in a cereal. It would be so much healthier choice. Just a thought for you to give some thought to. Okay, next. That's why we say eating highly processed foods, whether they're animal or plant, is not the healthiest choice. That's why these fake meats, even though they're, not animal product, whatever it is, they're chopped up so much. They're absorbed up high. You don't get the same benefit as eating the food as it's grown in nature. Then eating healthy also leads to a healthier planet. And let's go to the next slide. I think that's the last slide. Let's go to the first video. I'd love you to hear Dr. Neal Barnard. He's one of my favorites. I've listened to this video so frequently. I love this man. He's calm, not like me. But he can be a little fun. And start at like 30 seconds down the road if you could advance it. And if you can't advance it, Edward, that would be okay too. Yeah, it looks like you can. That's good.
President of the Cancer Project.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Let's listen to what he has to say. Yeah, we'll stand by. Okay, stand by means I have to get up.
Recipes that can be recreated easily at home. Here is Dr. Neal Barnard, President of the Cancer Project.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us. When researchers have looked for parts of the diet that can help us against cancer, prevent it or improve survival, or improve health overall, one of the things we've really keyed in on is fiber. What is fiber? Fiber means plant roughage. And by that I mean it's the part of plants that doesn't get digested right away. And it helps us in many ways. One thing is it helps keep you regular. You hear people say that. All that means is it moves things along. But it doesn't just move food along, it moves carcinogens along. Let's say there was something not too healthy in the food I ate. Well, the quicker it leaves your body, the better off you are. Now, that can mean that if something was going to increase the likelihood of developing colon cancer because it's attacking the cells of your intestinal tract, it's gone. It's gone much faster. That's a good thing. Now, there's another thing, though. Fiber helps remove things that are circulating in your blood. How does that work? Your liver is filtering your bloodstream. Every minute of every day, blood is going through the liver, and the liver is looking for things that don't belong there. It's looking for hormones like estrogen or testosterone. You need some of those, but you don't need a huge excess, so your liver takes them out. It gets rid of cholesterol. It gets rid of medicines and things like that. And what it does is the liver filters the blood, finds a little excess estrogen, pulls it out of the blood, sends it down a little tube called the bile duct, and it ends up in the intestinal tract. And there, this little bit of estrogen goes down, attaches to some fiber that carries it out of the body. Very nice. So if you're thinking, well, a high amount of estrogen in my blood is linked to too much risk of breast cancer, a high fiber diet helps pull it away. One problem, a lot of people don't have much fiber in their diet. Let's say for breakfast I had bacon and eggs. How much fiber is there in that? Well, bacon and eggs aren't from plants. They don't have any plant roughage in it. Let's say for lunch I had yogurt and chicken breast. How much fiber is there? None, right? So the liver filters the blood. The little estrogen gets pulled out, goes down the bile duct, ends up in the intestinal tract looking for fiber. Where is it? There isn't any. It reabsorbs back into the bloodstream. The estrogen goes around, ends up back at the liver. The liver says, what are you doing here? I thought I got rid of you. It pulls it out of the blood again, sends it down the bile duct into the intestinal tract, looking for fiber. Where's my fiber? There isn't any. It's absorbed again. That estrogen will do this cycle over and over and over again. It's called enterohepatic circulation. Entero means intestinal tract. Hepatic means liver, like hepatitis. And this works not just for estrogen, but also cholesterol. Cholesterol will go around and around and around until you eat fiber. You hear about oat bran and oat cereals. They will reduce the amount of cholesterol in the blood. That's all they do. It's not rocket science. What they do is they grab that cholesterol that the liver has sent down, and they make sure it cannot get reabsorbed. That's a good thing. Same for testosterone. A man says, I don't want those testosterone excesses that are going to increase my risk of prostate cancer. Fiber is your friend. It puts the lid on it. It helps you to remove those excesses. Now let me walk you through an exercise. I want to help you to see how much fiber there is in the foods you eat. And inside of just a couple minutes, you are going to know how much fiber there is in just about everything in the store without reading the label. Will you do this with me? Okay. Let's take something like a banana. How much fiber is there in a banana? Now, you may not know right offhand, but give me a guess. Give me a guess. Is there 1 gram, 16,000 grams? How much fiber would you say there is in a banana? Anybody? 5, 8, 10, 2? Okay, very good. It's about 2.7 in an average banana. Okay, so not quite 3. How about an apple? Now, an apple's kind of like a banana, so it's not going to be 25. How much fiber would you guess is in an apple? 10, 3, what? About 3.7. So similar to a banana, a little bit more. How about cantaloupe? Now, here's a clue for you. If I take a cup of cantaloupe, it's a little bit more watery, so a little bit less fibrous. So if a banana is 2.7 and an apple's 3.7, what's cantaloupe? Okay, 1 to 2, right, good, about 1.3. So let's say an average fruit, you walk in the store, an average fruit is going to be about 3 grams per fruit. All right, let's take some vegetables. How about if I have a cup of broccoli? Give me a guess. Now, here's a clue. It's maybe broccoli's not quite as watery as a typical fruit, is it? A little more fibrous? So how much fiber would you say is maybe in a cup of broccoli? 6, 7, 8? Okay, about 4.6. So a cup of broccoli, about 4.6. How about carrots? Are they more like broccoli, or is a carrot more like cantaloupe? Well, it's more like broccoli. It's fibrous, right? So how much fiber? About 5? Very good. About 5.2 in a typical cup of carrots. How about iceberg lettuce? Well, it's not 0. It is a plant, okay? But you also know, you're thinking right, it's not huge. It's not like broccoli. So give me a number. 1, 1.5, okay, perfect, 1.2. All right, so a typical cup of vegetables, we're going to say 4. All right, where am I? Fruit, 3, vegetables, 4. Very easy, unless it's iceberg lettuce, when we're going to cut that down a little bit. Give me beans now. How about if I have a half-cup serving of black beans? How many grams of fiber in that? Now, here's a clue. Beans are not really watery. They're pretty fibrous. So, half cup of black beans? 8, 6, 7. Very good, about 7.5. How about baked beans? Baked beans. 6, 7? Okay, about 6.4. Good. So a typical half-cup serving of beans, about 7. All right, where are we? Fruit, 3, vegetables, 4, beans, 7. Now let's go to our grain group. How about pumpernickel bread? Actually, a slice of pumpernickel has about 2 grams, about 2.1. It's less than you'd think. How about white bread? 0? Well, now, it's not going to be 0 because it is from a plant. Now, they've done their best to make sure there's no nutrition in there, but they did leave a little. So let's call it about a half a gram of fiber. Okay? So a typical bit of white bread, maybe up to a gram. A more whole grain bread, maybe about 2. But does that surprise you? Fruit is 3, vegetables are 4, beans are 7. The breads, which we think of as being high fiber, are lower. Okay, so our fiber champions, the bean group at about 7 for a half a cup, and then the vegetables at about 4, fruits at about 3, and if I have a slice of bread, if it's white, maybe a gram, if it's whole grain, about 2, typical cereals about 3. Okay? You walk in the store and you can look on the left, you can look on the right, and you can estimate, even for a packaged food or a canned food, what's inside, and you're going to have a pretty good ballpark of whether it has fiber or not. Okay, extra credit. How much fiber is there in a pork chop? Zero? Zero? We agree? Well, why?
0.5.
Why? Is it from a plant?
It's from an animal.
It's from an animal. Animals don't have plant roughage, so the answer is 0. How about a cup of milk? 0 because it's from an animal, not a plant. Wait, how about if it's skim milk? How about if it's organic skim milk? Still 0? You're with me? Okay. How about eggs? 0. How about eggplant? Okay, very good. So there's fiber in eggplant. Okay, so I always like things that are easy to remember. Animal products don't have fiber. Plant products do. So what? Does fiber really help? The answer is yes. Let's say I want to knock off a few extra pounds. One of the best things you can do is pump up the fiber intake in your diet. I'm going to give you a number. Every 14 grams of fiber that are part of your regular daily menu, every 14 grams of fiber cuts your calorie intake by about 10%. So let's say a typical person in the United States is eating maybe 12 grams of fiber per day. Add 14, I get 26. I'm going to feel fuller. And even though I think I'm eating the same amount, my calorie intake drops about 10%. So if I go up another 14 from 26 to, where am I now? 40. My calorie intake drops again. I think I'm eating the same amount, but all that fiber fills me up. My calorie intake falls. Something's happening to my scale. I'm losing weight automatically without ever going hungry. Fiber is a good thing. It improves your digestion, it slims your waistline, it reduces cholesterol, and it'll reduce your cancer risk too. That's the power of healthy fiber. Thanks.
Only have 3 more. And then we're going to just share a few ideas about where you get your fiber and the kind of foods that you might be eating. I want to spend some time with you and make sure that we get to any questions that you may have about all this. So let's see what the next video has in store for us. These are shorter videos.
Good bacteria, those that live in symbiosis with us, are nourished by fruits and veggies, grains and beans, whereas dysbiosis, bad bacteria that may contribute to disease, are fed by meat, junk food, and fast food, seafood, dairy, and eggs. Typical Western diets can decimate our good gut flora. We live with trillions of symbionts, good bacteria that live in symbiosis with us. We help them, they help us. And a month on a plant-based diet results in an increase of the good guys and a decrease in the bad, the so-called pathobionts, the disease-causing bugs. Given the disappearance of pathobionts from the intestine, one would expect to observe a reduction in intestinal inflammation. So they measured stool concentrations of lipocolin-2, which is a sensitive biomarker of intestinal inflammation, and within a month of eating healthy, it had declined significantly, suggesting that promotion of microbial homeostasis, or balance, by a strict vegetarian diet resulted in reduced intestinal inflammation. And this rebalancing may have played a role in the improved metabolic and immune system parameters. On an animal-based diet, you get growth of disease-associated species like Bilophila wadsworthia, associated with inflammatory bowel disease, and A. putridinus, found in abscesses and appendicitis, and a decrease in fiber-eating bacteria. Eat fiber, and the fiber-munching bacteria multiply, and we get more anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, short-chain fatty acids. Eat less fiber, and our fiber-eating bacteria starve away. They are what we eat. Eat a lot of phytates, and your gut flora get really good at breaking down phytates. We assumed this was just because we were naturally selecting for those populations of bacteria that could do that, but it turns out our diet can teach old bugs new tricks. There's one type of fiber in nori seaweed that our gut bacteria can't normally break down, but the bacteria out in the ocean that eat seaweed have an enzyme to do so. When it was discovered that the enzyme was present in the guts of Japanese people, it presented a mystery. Sure, sushi is eaten raw, and so some seaweed bacteria may have made it into their colons, but how could some marine bacteria thrive in the human gut? It didn't need to. It transferred the nori-eating enzyme to our own gut bacteria. Consequently, the consumption of food with associated environmental bacteria is the most likely mechanism that promoted the enzyme update into our own gut microbes, almost like a software update. We have the same hardware, the same gut bacteria, but they just updated their software to chew on something new. Hardware can change too, though. The reasons this is called the way to a man's heart is through his gut microbiota is because they were talking about TMAO. Certain gut flora can take carnitine from the red meat we eat, or the choline concentrated in dairy and seafood and eggs, and convert it into a toxic compound, which may lead to an increase in our risk of heart attack, stroke, and death. This explains why those eating more plant-based diets have lower blood concentrations of the stuff, but they also produce less of the toxin even if you feed them a steak. You don't see the same conversion, suggesting an adaptive response of the gut microbiota in omnivores. They are what we feed them. It's like if you give people cyclamate, a synthetic artificial sweetener. Most of our bacteria don't know what to do with it. But if you feed it to people for 10 days and select for the few bacteria that were hip to the new synthetic chemical, eventually 3/4 of the cyclamate you eat is metabolized by the bacteria into another new compound called cyclohexylamine. But stop eating it, and those bacteria die back. Unfortunately, cyclohexylamine may be toxic, and so was banned by the FDA in 1969, whereas regular Kool-Aid evidently is completely safe. But if you just ate cyclamate once in a while, it wouldn't turn into cyclohexylamide because you wouldn't have fed and fostered the gut flora specialized to do so. And the same with TMAO. Those that just eat red meat or eggs or seafood once in a while would presumably make very little of the toxin because they hadn't been cultivating the bacteria that produces it.
To take home are that you can populate your microbiome with bacteria that can feed you back good things. Those good things are butyrate, which is a short-chain fatty acid, and with serotonin, which is an anti-anxiety, antidepressant type of chemical. So, again, these are choices that you personally get to make as to how much fiber you choose to eat in your diet, how much whole plants, how much you love the foods that you love and you want to keep eating them because they taste so good. You know, I'm here to give you the message. I loved what I was eating 14 years ago, but I love better what I'm eating today. And it's not completely different, but it's hugely changed. And what I mean not completely different, I was eating some fruit and vegetables, not nearly the amount that I do right now. I loved it then. I love it even more now because of the health that I have. And so the meat, the dairy, the eggs, and the ice cream I had every single night of my life, the ice cream, not all the others, but the ice cream, has dropped off, and I'm not craving. I love what I'm eating because I love being healthy. So that's the message you're going to hear from me over and over again as a coach, not as someone who's telling you have to do anything, but just what my personal experience has been. Okay, I think that's all I want to. You don't have to know about how your software gets updated, but you know, it's kind of cool science for some. After you listen to the video a few times, it becomes, you learn another new thing and another new thing. I keep learning a new thing every time. Yes, Scott.
Interesting. The bacteria, the specific bacteria that make the TMAO, which you saw, that chemical conversion, it's actually the bacteria that decomposes meat. So actually, if you think about the specific types of bacteria that actually decompose animal products, meat, is the bacteria that makes the TMAO. So because we know it's called putrefaction. So when you eat meat, as it goes through your intestinal tract, it actually putrefies. It actually still decomposes, because just like you leave a roadkill on the side of the road, it's going to start to stink and decompose. That's what's happening in your colon when you eat meat. It's actually decomposing as it's being digested. And so the bacteria that actually are responsible for that decomposition are the specific bacteria that make the TMAO. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Not that you need more reasons to not eat meat, but it's just I just find that interesting.
Next video.
In the U.S., we tend to get less than 20 grams of fiber a day, only about half the minimum recommended intake. But in populations where many of our deadliest diseases are practically unknown, rural China, rural Africa, they're eating huge amounts of whole plant foods, up to 100 grams of fiber a day or more, which is what it's estimated our Paleolithic ancestors were getting based on dietary analyses of modern-day primitive hunter-gatherer tribes and by analyzing coprolites, human fossilized feces. In other words, paleopoop. These most intimate of ancient human artifacts were often ignored or discarded during many previous archaeological excavations, but careful study of materials painstakingly recovered from human paleofeces says a lot about what ancient human dietary practices were like, given their incredibly high content of fiber, undigested plant remains, strongly suggesting that for over 99% of our existence as a distinct species, our gastrointestinal tract has been exposed to the selective pressures exerted by a fiber-filled diet of whole plant foods. So for millions of years before the first stone tools and evidence of butchering, our ancestors were eating plants. But what kind of plants? One way you can tell if animals are natural folivores or frugivores, meaning leaf eaters or fruit eaters, is to map the area of absorptive mucosa in our gut versus their functional body size. Folivores are those meant to eat mostly foliage, leaves, while frugivores are better designed to eat fruit. The faunivores eat the fauna, another name for carnivore. If you chart animals out this way, they fall along distinct lines. So where do humans land? Here's our functional body size, and here's our absorptive area. So while eating our greens is important, it appears the natural dietary status of the human species is primarily that of a fruit eater. Why does it matter how much fiber we used to eat? Well, one theory for the rising levels of obesity in Western populations is that the body's mechanisms for controlling appetite evolved to match how many plants we used to eat. Our ancestors ate so many plant foods, we were getting like 100 grams of fiber a day. So for millions of years, food equaled fiber. So no surprise, one of the physiological mechanisms our body evolved to suppress our appetite involved this fiber. For example, fiber is metabolized by our gut flora into short-chain fatty acids, which bind to and activate receptors on the surfaces of our cells that alter our metabolism. For example, activating receptors on fat cells to increase the expression of the weight-reducing hormone leptin. Other hormones are affected as well. Since until recently, food meant fiber An increase in food intake meant an increase in fiber intake, which made our gut bacteria so happy they made lots of short-chain fatty acids, activating the cell surface receptors, releasing a bunch of hormones that make us lose our appetite and downregulate hunger, so we eat less. But if we eat less, there's less fiber in our gut, so less of these hormones are released, which boosts our appetite, we get hungry, and we want to eat. But what if food doesn't equal fiber, like on the standard American diet? Then we keep just getting those signals to eat, eat, eat. We're always hungry. If we haven't eaten our 100 grams of fiber for the day, our body may be like, what, are we starving here? Discovering this mechanism makes the food and pharmaceutical industries very excited. They figure they can now come up with, the new drugs in the fight against the current obesity onslaught, or we could just eat as nature intended.
To move that back to approximately right here. See if you can do that. Can you shift it back to where that diagram was? There's the diagram. This is an important diagram. If food equals fiber, then you have this cycle of when you eat food, you get fiber, which leads to some hormonal changes, which release the GLP-1, which we've talked about, which ultimately send you signals that you've had enough to eat. Then you get this decreased fiber because you stop eating, and then ultimately you get a decrease in this GLP-1, and ultimately it suppresses your appetite until you start getting hungry again. Now, what happens when you don't have the fiber? That gets wiped out. And what is the message that your brain keeps receiving? Eat, eat, eat. What is happening with our population? Eat, eat, eat. Crave, crave, crave. So if you want to break that cycle, what do? Eat more whole plant foods. This is simple. It's very interesting, fascinating science, something that we were not aware of until about the last, 10 or 15 years in my mind. For me, the last maybe 10 years. Last video. And then we'll get to some questions, because I'm having way too much fun.
The total surface area of our gut is maybe 3,000 square feet, counting all the little folds, larger than a tennis court. Yet only a single layer of cells separates our inner core from the outer chaos. The primary fuel that keeps this critical cell layer alive is a short-chain fatty acid called butyrate, which our good bacteria make from the fiber we eat. We feed the good bacteria in our gut, and they feed us right back. They take the prebiotics we eat like fiber, and in return provide the vital fuel source that feeds the cells that line our colon, a prototypical example of the kind of symbiosis between us and our gut flora. How important are these compounds, our good bacteria derived from fiber? There's a condition known as diversion colitis that frequently develops in segments of the colon or rectum after surgical diversion of the fecal stream, meaning if you skip a segment of the bowel, like with an ileostomy, so that food no longer passes through that section, it becomes inflamed and can start bleeding, breaking down, closing off. How frequently does this happen? Up to 100% of the time. But the inflammation uniformly disappears after you reattach it to the fecal flow. We didn't know what caused it, maybe some kind of bacterial overgrowth or bad bacteria, or was it a nutritional deficiency of the lining of the colon due to the absence of the fiber needed to create the short-chain fatty acids? We didn't know until this study, where they cured the inflammation by bathing the lining in what it so desperately needed. Severe inflammation gone in just a few weeks. We feed the good bacteria in our gut, and they feed us right back. It makes sense that we have good bacteria in our gut that feed us, tries to keep us healthy. They got a pretty good thing going, right? It's warm and moist, and food just keeps magically coming down the pipe. But if we die, they lose out on all that. If we die, they die. So it's in their best evolutionary interest, right, to keep our colon happy. But there are bad bugs too, like cholera that cause diarrhea. They have a different strategy. The sicker they can make us, the more explosive the diarrhea, the better their chances of spreading to other people, into other colons. They don't care if we die because they don't intend on going down with the ship. So how does the body keep the good bacteria around while getting rid of the bad? Think about it. We have literally trillions of bacteria in our gut. And so our immune system must constantly maintain a balance between tolerance to good bacteria while attacking bad bacteria. If we mess up this fine balance and start attacking harmless bacteria, it could lead to inflammatory bowel disease, where we're in constant red alert attack mode. The mechanisms by which the immune system maintains this critical balance remained largely undefined until now. If you think about it, there's got to be a way for our good bacteria to signal to our immune system that they're the good guys, and that signal is butyrate. Butyrate suppresses the inflammatory reaction, tells our immune system to stand down. So butyrate may behave as a microbial signal to inform our immune system that the relative levels of good bacteria are within the desired range. Right? Butyrate calms the immune system down, saying in effect, all's well, you got the good guys on board, ultimately rendering the intestinal immune system hypo-responsive, meaning kind of accommodating to the beneficial bacteria. But in the absence of the calming effect of butyrate, our immune system is back in full force, attacking the bacteria within our gut, because they're obviously not the right ones since butyrate levels are so low. So we evolved to have butyrate suppress our immune reaction. So should our good bacteria ever get wiped out and bad bacteria take over, our immune system would be able to sense this and go on a rampage and destroy the invaders and continue rampaging until there are only good bacteria creating butyrate to put the immune system back to sleep. Okay, here's the critical piece. Here's why this all matters. What if we don't eat enough fiber? Remember, our good bacteria use fiber to create butyrate. So if we don't eat enough fiber, then we can't make enough butyrate. We could have lots of good bacteria, but if we don't feed them fiber, they can't make butyrate. Sensing such low levels of butyrate, our body mistakenly thinks our gut must be filled with bad bacteria and reacts accordingly. Our body can mistake low fiber intake for having a population of bad bacteria in our gut. Our body doesn't know about processed food. It evolved over millions of years getting massive fiber intake. Even during the Paleolithic period, 100 grams of fiber a day. So on fiber-deficient Western diets, eating our Spam on Wonder Bread, right, when our body detects low butyrate levels in the gut, it doesn't think low fiber. As far as our body's concerned, there's no such thing as low fiber. It thinks bad bacteria. Because for millions of years, low butyrate means bad bacteria. So that's the signal for our body to go on the inflammatory offensive. So that's one reason why fiber can be so anti-inflammatory. One of the reasons fiber intake is critical for optimal health. Not fiber supplements, but whole plant foods. Fiber supplementation with something like Metamucil may not replicate the results seen with a diet naturally high in fiber.
Those words, it's very simple. If you don't get enough fiber, you're not going to have enough butyrate.
Right, signaling your body, telling them, your brain, do you have enough good bacteria? Yes? If you don't, what does your brain think? You have bad bacteria. So what can that result in? Irritable bowel syndrome, gut aches, autoimmune disorders like Crohn's disease, colitis. And that can be stopped by eating a diet of whole plant foods. Yes, God.
And that's all chronic inflammation again. So the leaky gut, chronic inflammation, and patients I have over the last 20 years, majority of patients I see in the clinic, their white blood cell counts are elevated. They're always like 9,000, 10,000, 12,000. That's their baseline. And so they're always in chronic inflammation. And that's a lot of that's because they're not getting enough fiber. They're always in an inflammatory response, just like Dr. Gregory was showing there. And then I actually have to counsel other providers all the time, like, oh, this person's plant-based or vegan and their white count's only 3,000. I maybe need to send them to a hematologist because it's too low. It's like, no, that's the low end of normal. That's actually a good sign. That's a sign that you have low levels of inflammation in the body. So when you get an infection, say you got pneumonia, your 3,000 might jump to 9 or 10,000. That's appropriate because that's going from, you don't have any chronic inflammation. You're in acute inflammation because your immune system's responding to the infection, the bacterial infection that's causing your pneumonia. So that's normal. A lot of times people then that are 9 or 10,000 all the time, they'll jump to like 14 or 15,000. So they'll still have a response, but they're always elevated. And so there's actually really good studies on that, you know, if you have low, you actually want to have low white blood cell count as your baseline, because that means low levels of inflammation in the body.
So does anybody want to share where they get their fiber? Breakfast, lunch, or dinner? Or are we going to be shy? Yeah, go ahead.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Well, wait a second. We got to get the microphone.
Oh, he's got it here. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Oh, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay. So what does that mean when he says he's getting fiber breakfast, lunch, and dinner? He's eating plant foods. Yeah. And so then it becomes how much? And if you were starting this out, maybe you could have a little bit of animal product because you just can't stand the thought of of not eating it for whatever reason that might be, because your taste buds or whatever it is. If you were living in a blue zone, you might have a little bit of animal product. But if you're having chest pain and the doctor says you probably are going to need a bypass or we need to put a stent in, you may want to do this 100%. But it's totally your choice as to what you choose to do, depending on what your goals are. The biggest source of fiber could be beans or lentils, the legumes. But if you don't like beans or lentils, what else could you eat? Chickpeas, split peas, you might like those. So there are several options here for getting the maximum amounts in 3 half-a-cup servings a day. How about for your whole grains? What are whole grains? What are some of you eating? Is there anybody who's eating whole grain groats? Like there's more than 3 or 4 people eating groats. What is groats? Groats is like the oat as it grows in the field. You take and chop it with a steel blade and it becomes steel cut oats. You roll it and you strip off some of the fiber and it becomes rolled oats, thick rolled oats. Or you roll it more and it becomes regular rolled oats, the 5-minute kind. Then you strip it some more and it becomes instant oats. Each time you modify it a little bit more, it becomes less and less fiber. So the one with the most fiber is groats. It's like GROATS. It's oat with a GR before it. Okay? Yes.
I eat steel cut oats every morning. Is that enough fiber?
Steel cut oats?
Steel cut, yeah.
Yes, steel cut oats is an excellent choice because all you've done is chop it and, you know, a couple times. And so you have most of it intact. You haven't chopped it up really fine like a flour. It's a very healthy choice, steel cut oats.
I eat that, and at least a half a cup of blueberries. And a half a cup of either navy beans or cannoli beans, white beans. They're delicious in oatmeal. And a quarter teaspoon of turmeric and a quarter teaspoon of pepper and a tablespoon of, flax seeds. I eat and some pumpkin seeds or walnuts.
That sounds wonderful. The pepper, instead of the full quarter teaspoon, I think you can get by with just a pinch of pepper, is what Gregor would say.
It tastes.
Okay, if you like pepper, that you have some spicy food. That is great. I love it. We've noticed that ourselves. White beans don't have a overpowering flavor. They go really well with that. Thank you for that. So you're eating totally whole plant foods then for breakfast, it sounds like. Good job in terms of depending on your goal. Yes. Can we talk about nuts? Okay, Scott, do you want to talk about nuts a little bit?
I have to look up, there's quite a bit of fiber in nuts too. I'd have to, I guess I haven't really memorized it.
I haven't either.
I just go a handful a day or whatever, and I put a handful in my Coke jokes and all that. So if they're adding more fiber, or we look it up on the front, I can look it up.
We're gonna look that up. We have 10 minutes here and we will get an answer for you because we love those questions. And obviously in the classes we've given, not everybody, but there is fiber in nuts. We think about nuts as being more protein, but it is a fibrous compound. So we'll get it in a bit. What's the next question?
I have a question.
Okay, hold on. Let me get the microphone here to talk.
So I've been very fortunate, I've been doing this about 35 to 40 years, and I've been very fortunate not to be sensitive about one type of fiber or another. My body processes it very easily. But a number of people I know and family members seem to feel a greater sensitivity toward, in a negative way, toward one over another. So one type of being not being tolerated as easily as another. And I wonder if that has to do with, in your opinion, quantity, or just the fact that it's not being presented as often, or if people's bodies really do have these variations in what they can tolerate.
So what kind of variation, what kind of side effects are they having? Why do they like one nut over another?
Well, my husband can tolerate black beans super well. I can too, but I like navy beans.
Oh, different beans,
Yeah.
different beans,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so why is that sometimes you can tolerate one bean a little better than another bean? I don't know the answer to that.
Everyone has a different, slight differences in their microbiome and things like that.
Individual variation is what we say, and if you have better benefit from one than another, then go for it. But try to get a little variety.
So a quarter cup of almonds is 3 grams of fiber. So a quarter cup's usually what Gregor recommends, limiting nuts and seeds to about a quarter cup a day. So you're getting about 3 grams of vitamins from that. So, yeah.
Okay, so and in terms of nuts, walnuts have the most amount of omega-3s. Again, the short chain fatty acids, which are health promoting. So you don't have to have just walnuts, but Gregor says it's the healthiest choice. And then having a Brazil nut once or twice a week or every other day or whatever you do, not 2 a day. He says like to lower cholesterol, I think it's 4 Brazil nuts a month. But if you want to get a little selenium, having a Brazil nut once or twice a week is probably adequate for getting thyroid function, thyroid hormone adequate with your iodine. All right, what else? Anybody else have any thoughts? Okay.
I have a question about arrowroot powder. I use it to thicken something that I make like a chocolate pudding.
Yeah, it's a thickener, but anyone else that's who knows about cooking, we're cooking experts, Tamara. It's just, I know it's in some recipes, root powder for thickening agent.
Yeah, what's the question?
What is arrowroot? What about
Is
it?
it good for you?
Is it good for you, bad for you, arrowroot?
Oh, I think it's good for you, and you're just using a very small amount.
2 tablespoons actually.
Really?
Yeah, for that chocolate pudding, you know.
Instead of the chocolate chips.
Yes.
You put the arrow.
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
And I eat a lot of it. I like it.
I haven't actually looked up arrowroot powder.
And also, if you didn't want, if you wanted to, like a lot of the cheat sheets and stuff from tonight, because we have, the whole class on fiber like we just did. On the class website under the resources section, you'll see handouts from classes there. So you click on that and go down, you'll see there's some handouts on fiber. Like it has the little cheat sheet from PCRM from Neil Barnard about how many grams of fiber and different servings of foods and things. So that's all there. There's some other stuff there, but yeah, it's always good to kind of run through. There's lots of different handouts that kind of go with some of the classes on the website.
So this,
Videos.
Not the video.
There are no links to.
No, but this class is recorded, so you can just watch it
I thought I
again.
sent a link to this last
Yeah.
one to somebody else.
Oh, yeah, Charlie, he has them, but you could usually show where they are, they're just Dr. Greger's ones. If you have, Barnard's one, if somebody puts the email, you can send them the videos from.
yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Just send me an email. Arrowroot powder is generally safe in food quantities, but can cause constipation or stomach discomfort, especially with overuse. Other potential side effects include allergic reactions like itching or swelling, and a rare risk of liver toxicity with extremely high doses, such as consumed in arrowroot juice. People with celiac disease should avoid it, and diabetics should monitor their intake due to a high starch and carbohydrate content. Digestive issues, constipation, overconsumption of arrowroot due to thickening and binding properties can lead to constipation. Stomach discomfort, some individuals may experience mild stomach discomfort like gas. Excess intake can sometimes contribute to gas. Allergic reactions are rare, but you can get itching and hives. And so that's on a Google search that you may want to look it up in terms of what a usual dose is, okay? So it seems like you're doing okay with it, but
Well, I have a ton of gas and I thought it was the beans.
yeah, so maybe it's the arrowroot. So maybe it's good you asked the question, and you may try cutting back on that for a couple weeks and see what happens.
Didn't know if I needed 1 tablespoon or 2.
So cut it in half from what you're using now and watch what happens. Okay, good you came to class. We have a couple more minutes here. Are there any other questions or concerns, or do you all have this concept of legumes having the highest amount of fiber? If you're doing about a half a cup 3 times a day, you're getting 21 grams of fiber. If you're doing 4 or 5 servings of fruit, and I hope you noticed that we're fruitarians, according to our GI tract, which I found very interesting and fascinating. I eat maybe 6 servings of fruit a day. I'm not saying you should. Gregor recommends 4, so 4 to 5 is what I usually tell people. And vegetables, don't skimp. 5 servings, and 3 of them should be green. And those servings of vegetables could include potatoes, and they can include onions and garlic and carrots and any other cabbage, any other vegetables that you like. And then the whole grains are important in your life also. Whole grains like the groats or the oats, even 5-minute cooking oatmeal is fine, even though it's got a little less fiber than the groats or whatever it is. We ate 5-minute cooking oatmeal for our first 6 or 8 years. when we transitioned back 14 years ago. So as you read and you learn more and you study more, you may change some of you may like some different tastes. And that's what happened with us, why we went to the groats, because it had a little more body. It was a little different, and it's a variety, but we'll go back and eat regular oat, the 5-minute cooking kind. We're fine with that. Rice, be careful of rice other than from California, because the rices have arsenic in them. And if you're eating large quantities, you need to be careful. If not, probably doesn't matter where you get the rice from, but California rice doesn't tend to have much arsenic in it. Quinoa is a really good whole grain that you might learn to like over time. It's easy to cook. And then let's see. Oh, the other thing, we mentioned the beans and stuff. Don't forget edamame. Don't forget tempeh and tofu. Those are really wonderful additions, which add some additional flavor, especially if you do some spices with it. And you don't necessarily think of soy as a legume, but it is, and it's a healthy one. And let's see what else. A quarter cup of nuts. Yes, Jamie, it's your turn.
I learned a little tempeh trick recently, which is that you can go directly to Serrata Soy Foods on West 2nd by not far from REI. And tempeh is pretty expensive in the store. It's like $5.50 for a package. But if you buy it from their window, they'll sell it to you for $3.25.
What was the name?
Serrata Soy Foods.
Thank you very much for that. That's an important thing. Yes, let's go here first.
Smoothies, and I put a lot of kale in there, maybe a little spinach and a lot of fruit and a carrot and some flaxseed. But can I get my fiber that way from the smoothie, drinking it
Yes.
instead of eating it?
Yes, you can get your fiber, but the more highly processed, the more will be absorbed up high. You'll still get some fiber from that. So as long as you're not stripping away the fiber like juicing, you're going to likely be okay. You won't get quite as much GLP, but you're not interested in kind of suppressing your appetite as much.
Vitamins.
For you, it's fine. If someone were trying to lose weight, then I would advise them, you want more GLP-1, you can do some smoothies occasionally, but try to not make that the main part of what you eat.
I'm not trying to say.
Yeah, you're not. So you can have all the smoothies you want, but someone else who might be trying to lose weight should probably do some whole foods, not chopped up quite as much.
And Jamie had mentioned that you can also freeze the tempeh. The tempeh, if you buy it at Serrata, it actually freezes really well too. So
Yeah, so you buy it and you can freeze the tempeh, and at first it tastes kind of bland, unless you learn to add a little spice, and Tamara can help me with that.
The thing is, if you're gonna go all the way out there, it's good to buy 4 packages.
It's on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay, 1 or 2 last questions, and then
I was just wondering what the sauce is that you really like on the tempeh.
I don't know. My wife's fingers go into that sauce, and I'm not sure exactly what she's done with them. Licked them, or added some what spices she's done. It's a mystery to me, and I kind of want it to be that way. Like I don't want to really know because,
Charlotte, can you get her recipes?
I don't know. I guess
Tamara has recipes for sauces when she does cooking demos and cooking class. So.
One last question here, and then we'll call it a night.
So, but several years ago, I took some tempeh and made the bacon strips out of it. And that was good with the maple syrup and whatever else. So those sauces are online too.
Yeah, you can make some really good tasting.
Also with sauces, one of the cookbooks on the class website under the cookbook section is Drina Burton, Plant Powered Families by Drina Burton. And she's like the queen of sauces. So there's a whole bunch of sauce recipes in that cookbook. Yeah.
We've really enjoyed spending the time with you tonight. This has really been fun for me. Grateful for you all. And if you have other questions, you can get in touch with us. We'll be around for a little bit and enjoy your week. What's next?
Next week is risky substances and food addiction. So Elizabeth Maxwell, she's a PhD in public health, and she'll talk about avoiding risky substances and then a little bit about food addiction. But if you want like the full food addiction, you can Campbell Community Center, which I think it's on the upcoming events section on the website. If you go to upcoming events, you'll see how to go to do that, because you just have to contact Campbell Community Center and you can sign up. But if you want that's the full one, that's this coming Monday. Yeah, just next week. But a little bit taste of that next week also, class here.
And at this Thursday at I think it's 1 o'clock is Willamette Lane on Diet Wars. I'm giving a talk. Scott is giving a talk at Campbell Seniors or Campbell Community Center next Monday. I think it's at 10 o'clock. And Edward, thank you very much for your tech support tonight. And thanks to the church for allowing us to use this building. Take care, everyone.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Okay. That one's smooth.